Facebook. And so today I am very excited to chat with all of you about gluten and about how it can be a root cause of so many different diseases, so many ailments, so many symptoms, all the things. And so I am hopeful that I am live over on Facebook because we are about to dive right in to gluten. So before we get in, tell me where you're tuning in from. Where are you listening from? Have you had problems with gluten in your life that have caused you to feel sick, to feel like you're not just in your body, all of the things? Because gluten is one of those things that it is a little bit, it kind of flies under the radar, and it can cause people to not understand that something is off with them. So I don't know why, Facebook, that I can't see your comments, but I want to be sure that you are able to get all of your questions answered. Super excited. I can see your comments now. Glad that everybody is here for the live. So let's dive in. And if you would like to learn more about all of the different detriments that gluten can cause in your health, please head to lindsayelmore.com/gluten. My friend Peter is hosting a glutenology summit that goes deep into all of the different ways that gluten can cause harm. So first of all, what even is gluten? So gluten is a general name for proteins that are found in wheat, in rye, and in barley. They are proteins that cause sensitivity, and they are collectively called prolamins. So each grain has a unique prolamin fraction. There is gliadin, which is what is found in wheat. There is secalin, which is found in rye, and hordein, which is found in barley. So gluten actually is not one thing. It is two things. There is gliadin, which is an alcohol-soluble protein, and glutenin, which is not soluble. So when flour and water combine, gluten forms the glue-like texture that holds the bread together. It gives dough bounce and elasticity, and it produces a softer and more textured bread. And so our bodies typically will digest gluten. In normal digestion, enzymes break down long strands of protein into smaller, more digestible components, and digestive enzymes perform a variety of tasks from breaking down all of the food. And so enzymes protect the microvilli in our digestive tract. This is what helps absorption of nutrients take place. There is an enzyme called tissue transglutaminase that breaks down gluten into gliadin and glutenin. And so if you don't have this enzyme, this is a problem. So what is celiac disease? So celiac is a genetic autoimmune disease that occurs when a person either you can have one of two antigens. So there is HLA-DQ2 or HLA-DQ8. And these antigens, if you have one of them or both of them, you can be diagnosed with celiac disease. So these immune system antigens, they see the protein, they see the gluten, and really what they see is gliadin, and they see them as intruders. The immune system responds by sending a whole bunch of antibodies that attack the gliadin. In people with celiac disease, antibodies attack digestive enzymes. And this is where the real problem lies, because these digestive enzymes are responsible for nourishing the microvilli. When you have celiac disease and are exposed to gluten, the microvilli begin to erode. And this is a major problem because this decreases a person's ability to effectively absorb nutrients and can even cause the intestinal walls to become leaky. This leads to bloating and constipation and diarrhea and weight loss and weight gain and fat malabsorption, anemia, low vitamin D. The list goes on and on and on and on. The malnutrition also deprives a person of essential nutrients that can lead to many different downstream effects. So the great news is that most people do not have antigens and don't have celiac disease. However, there are a lot of people that have gluten sensitivity even in the absence of celiac disease. And so it is important for us to recognize that even in people who do not have true celiac disease, there is still problems with a lot of people having gluten sensitivity. Why is that? That is because within the mucosal lining of the gut, there is a protein called zonulin. And zonulin moderates the permeability of tight junctions that allows for nutrient absorption. Gluten proteins are large and they are difficult for our bodies to break down, and so they cause a bigger release of zonulin. Then what happens is zonulin causes the tight junctions in the gut to be open for far too long. This increases gut permeability and can cause leaky gut syndrome. And when leaky gut syndrome happens, this allows more toxins, microbes, antibodies, undigested food particles, which are allergenic, to escape the intestines and travel through the body in the mainstream. Now, in the bloodstream, and a lot of people will say, oh, there's no such thing as leaky gut syndrome. I guarantee you everyone under the sun will be talking about leaky gut syndrome just as soon as we have a zonulin gate inhibiting drug. Mark my words. Call me a conspiracy theorist, but it's going to happen. So we need to be sure that we are not pushing our bodies with excessive gluten, because then if we continue to eat gluten and continue down this path, we basically allow the escape of antibodies from the intestines to unleash a killer cells. These antibodies attack our cells, they attack our tissues, they attack our organs in the body. And this is why gluten sensitivity is so highly linked to all autoimmune diseases. So you think about Hashimoto's thyroiditis, you think about lupus, you think about all of the different disease states that are associated with inflammation. Gluten sensitivity can worsen some of the inflammation. And because leaky gut and gluten sensitivity, because it disrupts the function of the bowels, you think first about like bloating, constipation, diarrhea, nausea, gastrointestinal symptoms, etc. But we know that gluten sensitivity, leaky gut syndrome can also be related to joint pain, muscle pain, brain fog, depression, confusion, frequent headaches, and migraines. Can I just step on my soapbox a minute? We have normalized headaches in our culture. It is not normal to have headaches day after day after day. It's not normal to have 5, 6, 7 headaches a month. So frequent headaches and migraines can be a symptom of gluten sensitivity. Gluten can make certain people very, very tired. It can cause numbness in the legs, arms, and hands, skin rashes, eczema, all associated with gluten sensitivity. ADHD, lack of focus, depression, anxiety, and some people even can be autism, and autism spectrum disorders can also be triggered by gluten sensitivity. And gluten sensitivity is not always genetic. If you're eating food that has a high concentration of gliadin, it can lead to lots of symptoms. So I hope everybody will join the Glutenology Summit, because it is going to go through and explain in much more detail than I have been able to today about what causes gluten sensitivities and how do we ensure that we are taking steps to heal gluten sensitivities. So the easiest way to discern if you're gluten sensitive is to stop eating gluten. I know that sounds ridiculously simple, but that is the easiest way to figure out if you are gluten sensitive. There's no test that you can take, but if you are eating gluten, depending on the severity of the gut problems that have been caused by gluten, it can easily take a few months for gluten allergies to heal, gluten sensitivities to heal. And so this was something that was really hard for me to learn, because I personally find gluten very delicious. I love gluten. But if you're eating gluten and you go, well, I only eat it a couple of times a year, maybe at Christmas, at my birthday, at this and that, because the inflammatory effects of gluten can disrupt cellular function so profoundly, it can easily take months for it to heal. So even if you're only eating gluten a couple times a year, if it takes several months for it to heal, you're still experiencing the ongoing effects of inflammation on the regular. So if you stop eating gluten and you start to notice that you're feeling better, chances are you have some degree of sensitivity. If you add gluten back into your diet and you start to notice that I am not feeling as good, keep a health journal. Record all the different ways that gluten is impacting you, because it is very important that you go, okay, I know my body well enough to just know that this is not the right food for me to be eating. Now, if you think you have celiac disease, it's very important to go see a physician for diagnosis. And the only treatment for celiac disease, unless you're getting into immune modulating drugs, which are assertive drugs, necessary sometimes, but they are an assertive choice. But the strict avoidance of gluten is just a way of life. If you have those HLA DQ2s or DQ8s, it's going to be very important to avoid gluten for life. You can go to your doc, get tested, and if you decide to go gluten-free, it's not just about wheat. It's about truly and deeply understanding that what is a grain. And if you can avoid as many grains as possible, here's the thing. In the way that foods are labeled, they only label gluten-free foods if it is gliadin-free, but it might still have gluten in it. And as I mentioned, gluten is not just one thing. And so you've got multiple proteins in there. And so just use some caution when you're picking out gluten-free foods, because there's a ton of gluten-free bread and pasta and cereal and crackers and cookies and blah, 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 blah. But it may still contain gluten, even if it does not contain gliadin. It's not great. So I think it is important to be sure that you're keeping track of the symptomatology, because it's really, really can be just a sign of so much. And recognizing that gluten makes you feel not so great, you have to be able to really dig deep and say, okay, well, if it's not making me feel great, then you are going to end up in a situation where you're having symptoms that are just seemingly unrelated. So everybody, go ahead to lindsayelmore.com/gluten right now. Sign up for the Glutenology Summit. It's free, and you can watch videos from so many experts that will help you to take better control over your health and well-being. And if you attended the Metabolic Makeover Summit, which I hope you did, you will have heard from Peter Osborne, who is the host of the Glutenology Summit. And everybody save the date, because next week I am going to announce a metabolic makeover boot camp, which we will be doing in the month of November. So if you are starting to feel like you just want something better, that you just feel like, hey, I deserve to be healthy, then come and join the Metabolic Bootcamp. Be on the lookout next week. If you head to www.metabolicmakeover, you can start to see some of the updates that are happening with the boot camp. The boot camp is a 21-day program that is going to help you to completely transform your metabolism. So I will talk to you all very soon. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Dr. Lindsay Elmore. You can find me at lindsayelmore.com, and please go subscribe, rate, review, all of the things. The Lindsay Elmore Show, anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Super excited that all of you tuned in today, and I will see you again for another Facebook Live and another YouTube Live. Adios, everybody. And adios, everybody.